Your neighbor tells you about the unstable man in the cul-de-sac who claims to have been abducted by aliens. And then there's the woman in town who claims to see Bigfoot all the time. Your boss, who you greatly admire, confides in you that he has started speaking with his wife daily when he gets home from work. She died 8 years ago. It's hard to believe this stuff, and you write these stories off as overactive imaginations. Are these people seeking attention, or are they a bit unstable? No matter what you think, if you're like me, you walk away wondering, what if that was true? The What If It's True podcast features stories by ordinary people like you and me. Something has happened to them, something so strange they are in agony unless they tell others. My name is Cameron Buckner, and the What If It's True podcast is available at whatifitstruepodcast.com and on all available podcast apps.
Welcome to Beast TV. What was that? You better get a fresh dip and buckle up. Welcome to Beast TV, and we want to thank everybody that is tuned in live and in our chat room. We got 100 people already in here at the beginning of the show, and if you're watching us later, we appreciate you tuning in and watching our little rinky-dink show. Larry, you're not in Tipton County anymore, are you?
No, I'm in some county in Texas. I don't even know where I'm at. And that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't need to know.
Yeah. Well, how's your week been? I know you did a little hunting.
It's been fine. The hunts were fun. I didn't get nothing. And that made it more fun because I didn't have to drag nothing out.
Yeah. It's just good to get out in the woods, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yep. You get to see all kinds of stuff. And they let you know when they see you.
Yeah, they sure do. They'll snort at you in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Or bark.
Yeah. We won't talk about that.
We got a great show tonight, Larry. And I'm just going to go ahead and let you introduce our guest.
All right. Tonight, our guest is Barbara Eils, and she is from Project Go and See. Is that correct?
That's right.
All right.
Hi, guys.
Hey,
hello.
We want to welcome you, and it's I cannot wait for you to be able to share your group's information. You've got a worldwide launch coming up soon, and we will talk about that. But Barbara, before we get started, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right. Well, thanks for inviting me to join you guys tonight. I'm really excited about it and appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit more about what Project Go and See plans to do moving forward. So I'm Barbara Eils of Project Go and See, and I'm a chef, an artist by trade, and I have recently decided to do something a little different. And if I'm a little scatterbrained tonight, forgive me, because I just arrived in Missouri. I just transplanted myself here, a little road trip, and I plan to develop some land that I purchased. There's a housing shortage, and COVID has created some opportunity here. So that's what I'm doing. And I've only been here a few days, and I'm glad you cannot see my surroundings because I've got bins and it's been crazy. And I'm going to try and listen as carefully as I can. My sound on my phone for some reason is very low. So my laptop took a crap on me, and we're using the phone tonight. But yeah, so that's who I am and where I am. And Project Go and See has been a really fun project to be involved with. It was not my idea or conception, but I am now running it. I have been running it on my own for a few years. It's been a little quiet, but we'd talked for a long time about broadening our horizons, and instead of just focusing on the US, I'd always wanted to take the opportunity to encourage our members in other countries to put boots on the ground and to just sort of raise awareness not just in the US but elsewhere about the possibility of these amazing creatures being possibly much closer than you might imagine, and much more geographically available than most people would believe.
I agree. Well, Barbara, what initially got you interested in the subject of Bigfoot?
Oh gosh, I have a pretty interesting entry into the subject. I would say my first experience was with a paranormal investigation team in California, and on location at one place, a woman believed that she had a demon in the woods trying to steal her child. And a member of our team was kind of a closet Bigfooter. We did not know this. And long story short, he found footprints, and some structures in the perimeter of the property. It was a large piece of property. And I thought he was nuts. And it was of no, you know, I think it freaked the woman out more than the idea of it being a demon. Um, I would prefer Bigfoot over a demon any day, right? But she was not
Yeah.
thrilled, and they subsequently sold the property, and I don't know where they are or what they're doing. I'm assuming the little girl is fine and was not abducted by demon or Bigfoot. But that was my first inkling that there may be more to it. Of course, as a child, I, like so many of us, was enthralled with the movie that came out in the 70s highlighting the Patterson Gimlin film, and I literally cried and begged my father to please take me before it left theaters, and I won, and he took me, and spent the rest of my life with the idea sort of in my, in the back of my mind that I wanted it to be real so badly, and I just was so interested in it. And then, life happens and you grow up and you don't think about it. And fast forward to, oh gosh, 7, 8 years ago, and I sent my son to a wilderness camp in Utah and was watching YouTube videos of kids that had previously been there. And at the end of one of the videos, how a bunch of stuff unrelated or related pops up. And I had seen a video from a guy named Rio,
Yeah.
Utah Sasquatch. And it was Monument Wallow. And I saw it before he pulled it. And that was kind of the moment when I said, oh my gosh, there's a community out there. Watching his video took me to, I found myself for a week straight watching Bigfoot videos, YouTube channels, joining groups in YouTube or in Facebook, and that was when I really realized how many people had a really serious interest in this, personally and otherwise, and started power watching stuff. I found Mike Patterson's content, Sasquatch Ontario, started watching that, had made a few comments. He responded back. Next thing I know, I'm an admin in a group that was made for him, that he kind of really didn't participate much in. He'd post, but he didn't admin or moderate or anything. And he and I struck up a friendship. And shortly after that, the stuff with Rio being attacked about Monument Wallow, he had posted that, and then took it down. And I reached out to him and we started talking. And it was when he had a lot of really scary things start happening to him, threats and people showing up to his home, posting his personal information, including his address. And it got pretty crazy. And it's not my story to tell, so I won't go into much more detail about that. But he and I started working together in terms of creating a more safe environment for people to share. And we have this secret little group that is still very much active, called the Inner Circle. And it was a way for people to have a place to share, without fear of ridicule or judgment, or if they just simply weren't ready to share their pictures or their video. A lot of these people had spouses that didn't know that they were involved in the subject, or that they were squatching, or they shared their encounters stories with significant others and weren't taken seriously. So the Inner Circle started as a place for not just Rio, but people that he trusted in the community to share in a place where, number one rule, what happens in the IC stays in the IC. If you do want to share something, you have to have implicit permission. And, the wake of Monument Wallow made Rio realize that what's important isn't so much that people believe your experience, or that you are trying to prove their existence. I think anybody who's been in the community for more than 5 minutes will have a taste of how difficult it is to have your research taken seriously, regardless of whether you're a veteran or a scientist or a newbie to the subject. You have to have really thick skin to share what you've experienced or what you are experiencing. And so Rio had this idea to create a group, Project Go and See. And it's really just the simplest, most elementary introduction to research in this field. The idea is that the group is, members only post results of what they find when they go and see. And we are very critical of what is allowed. And, for instance, a lot of people for a while there, I'm not seeing so much of it again, but I've kind of become allergic to it. So my antennas aren't up for it. But I'm sure everyone watching is familiar with previously recorded video that people take when they're out. And then they go back and analyze it frame by frame, and every dark blob is a Bigfoot. And we refer to those as blob squatches. And we're not against those, but we're opposed to posting it or making a spectacle of it if you haven't gone back and taken a closer look. It's your area, so you should be able to find that spot, go back and see what that blob is. If it's still there, then show us what it is, because clearly it's not Bigfoot a week later. We just ask that people hold their research to a very high level as far as posting pictures and video and claiming it's Bigfoot if if they're not sure. I've seen some footage and some pictures of our members, both in the inner circle and in Project Go and See, that nobody else has seen, because it is some of the best out there. And as I said before, it's very difficult to post anything that is, it's almost like the better it is, the worse it's received. And so again, Project Go and See is just about encouraging people to consider what might be out there. Get out there, put boots on the ground, go find the answers for yourself. Don't try and prove anything. Don't expect anyone's going to believe what you claim. And it isn't as important to convince others that what you're doing is 100% legit as it is important for people to consider that they can find the truth for themselves.
Right.
So we do have, I think we're over 1,400 members now in 13, 15 countries. We have active members in France, all over the UK, Sweden, Germany, a couple of people in Indonesia, all over the place. And there are very few people in that are members in other countries who are participating, but we have a lot of people observing. And so really what I want to talk about tonight is Project Go and See is what it is. It's going to continue to be what it is, but we're going to launch a broader challenge, and that is to try and draw in people that are outside of the US to put boots on the ground. We are probably, I'm not sure which I'm going to do yet. I'll be promoting the launch in Project Go and See, but I'm not sure if I'm going to make a secondary group for Project Go and See International, if I'm going to change the group name to Project Go and See International, or if, yeah, I'm not sure how I'm going to handle that yet. But as of now, Project Go and See is still available. It's an open group. Anyone is able to join. Again, if you do want to join, you are welcome. If you are researching, even better. We ask that you post only your own content and only what you have found when you go and see. And if you are in another country, please reach out to me and let me know. And we would gladly welcome you to join the movement, to spread awareness and encourage other people to go and see. And I'm of the school of thought that they are much more available than even people in the community are willing to consider. We have very, very good results with some of the things that we have found through trial and error as far as searching. People who've been out there and have boots on the ground and have done this for an extended amount of time have shared knowledge, things that the general population wouldn't know. For instance, we find more structures, vocalizations, sign. We can talk about sign too. On the northwest facing slopes of ridges and mountains. And we have members that have found structures and decided to focus on that a particular area that they might not otherwise think there would be any activity. Happenstance, coming across structures in places that they wouldn't expect them. And then in conjunction, it's not necessarily the structure in and of itself, but if you keep going back, a lot of these members are having things thrown at them. They're being bluff charged. They're having sightings. They're finding footprints. And as you guys know, when a researcher finds themselves in an area where they're having vocalizations. And when we say vocalizations, for anybody out there who isn't a researcher and maybe new to the subject, when we say that there's an area that is active, it usually encompasses all of those things. Something triggered you to believe it's a hotspot, whether you've had something thrown at you or you're hearing vocalizations. When we say vocalizations, we're not talking coyotes, we're not talking owls. It's very human-like, and it's bigger than, once you hear one, you know what I'm talking about. And when you find yourself in an area looking at a structure and all of a sudden you get hit in the head horizontally by a pine cone, not vertically, or you're having something just out of sight, just far enough into the foliage, the tree line, what have you, whooping and grunting in a way that sounds very human, but not quite, it's going to catch your attention. And internet. Okay, you guys got me?
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, did I go out there for a second?
Just a split second.
Okay.
They're watching.
Hopefully it doesn't cut out on me.
Uh.
I've had so many issues. But we believe that if you do a few things, you've got a greater chance of finding sign. And if you do find sign that is in fact Sasquatch sign, you of course are obviously going to have a greater chance of interaction or a sighting. And that isn't to say that you can just go out in the woods and start talking to Bigfoot. It doesn't work that way. I wish it did, but we have found that if you are dedicated and you find an area where you're having things happen in conjunction, you're seeing the footprints, you're hearing vocalizations, you're hearing tree knocks, all of these things together are a pretty good indication that they're present. I don't believe, I know. And there's kind of you go from cynic to skeptic to believer to knower. And ultimately, the more people that know, that's what Project Go and See is about. Find the truth for yourself and try not to fall down the rabbit hole. Try not to start thinking everything that you see is Bigfoot, which brings me to another point. People have a tendency in this subject to go out in the woods and they're so focused on Bigfoot that they forget the rest of the forest hasn't disappeared. And a lot of these people are going into very remote areas, and it could be dangerous. Just, be careful. Let someone know where you go, what time you're going, what time you expect to be back. Take an air horn, bear spray, a weapon if you can, a gun or a knife, not with the idea that you are hoping to use those, but if you need them, because there are bear, there are coyotes, there are wolves, and they don't disappear just because you're hoping to see Bigfoot. They're there. And don't go approaching that crashing sound you hear in the trees hoping it's Bigfoot or assuming it's Bigfoot, just to find yourself face to face with a buck in rut. That's never good. So bottom line, very simple. Project Go and See is just about going and seeing and sharing in the group what you find. And really the only rules is, like I said, your own content, the result of what you find, why you think it may be Bigfoot. And there's little things that we teach our members too, and encourage them to implement to sort of, there's a lot of man-made structure out there. And speaking of structures, I don't know if you guys had any questions or anything else you wanted to discuss, but, I'd be happy for you guys to show some of the pictures of some of the structures and footprints that our members have come across.
Yeah, we sure can. And I believe this first slideshow is from Patricia Edgett. Uh, did I pronounce that right?
I believe so,
Holy
yes.
mackerel. Really?
Hear it and weep, Larry.
There's one. We'll mark it down.
Okay, we're going to go through some of Patricia's pictures, and we will let you um, give us the backstory on them, or tell us a little bit about the findings.
Okay, so we're going Patricia first.
Yes.
Okay,
Hopefully.
so Patricia is amazing. She posts a lot in Project Go and See. She these pictures that you'll be seeing are from both northern Illinois as well as southern Indiana. And this girl here has some of the most amazing footprints and trackways consistently of anyone that I've ever met, let alone a member of Project Go and See. She has the most amazing prints. And she finds these around the shores of various lakes that she goes to. She doesn't necessarily have one area. She does have just a lot of luck finding footprints. And as you can see, these are pretty clear prints. A lot of times the prints that we see or that we find are difficult to make out, and sometimes we're not even sure it is a print. Most of her prints are clearly five-toed, flat-footed, large bipedal beings. Clearly those are not human footprints. That's not how human feet are shaped. But yeah, her pictures are amazing, and her prints are incredible. I don't know what this drag mark is. It crosses, as you can see, there's a cross there. I looked in her post and I'm not seeing an explanation of that. So it would be interesting to know what she thinks that is. I don't know if it was dragging something or I'm not sure what that is, but I shared it with you guys because it's really unusual, not just in the fact that there's those weird drag marks, but the way that it seems to have walked. You know, the footprints are on either side of these marks. Was it dragging something heavy? Was it maybe a tree? Was it taking it somewhere to build a structure? Who knows? I don't know, but it's very strange. I've never seen anything like that, so I thought that I'd share that one.
Okay, we'll pull up the next slide.
I'm not even going to say what I was going to say, Mark.
Well, go ahead, Larry.
It was a male.
Oh, God.
I'm kidding.
Male octopus. Oh boy. So this one is interesting. This trackway is really interesting because it kind of shows the compliant gait. A lot of people don't know this, and it's one of the ways that we throw out a lot of possible prints by hoaxers. They have a compliant gait, meaning that more so than human, they walk heel to toe in a straight line like a tightrope. And so the picture on the left shows a really good example of how close they are in front of each other, you know, heel to toe. And the one on the right is just a really cool capture because it's very hard to photograph footprints. Lighting and depth, you know, the depth perception is difficult. And that's another great thing about her photos. I don't know what she does, but she is like the queen of capturing clear photo images of prints. Prints are hard to photograph. The one on the right, it doesn't have an arch like a human foot would have. That's a typical Sasquatch print. It just is not human, and it's super clear. So I thought that would be a good one to share as well.
Yeah. And they are great pictures taken of these prints, because you're absolutely right. What you see in the field is not what you're going to capture with a camera.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very difficult to even perceive in film, or show in film the depth of the print or the clarity of the toes. And somehow she manages she's an amazing photographer. So this is another interesting thing that people see over and over again. In the 5 years I've been involved in Project Go and See and people collecting photographs, once in a while we'll see something unusual and we ask anyone, do you know what this is or what could cause this? And a lot of times we get answers, and it all of a sudden makes sense. Okay, it's not sign, could be natural or otherwise. But once in a while, there's a handful of things that always make us question what the purpose of it is or how it could happen naturally. We see these twisted breaks in smaller trees, saplings, foliage, where it clearly looks to be manipulated. That is not something that would happen naturally. I don't know how something could be kind of rolled and twisted that many times, turned around. It's almost like somebody is trying to rip it off, but they don't. And it's taken to a point where it could easily be released from what is, attaching it to it. And it just isn't. It's left like that. And we see that a lot. And we see it a lot near much bigger structures. The one on the right is a good example of some of the things that we find that cannot be considered a shelter, but it is clear manipulation. And in Project Go and See, we encourage people, when they see these kinds of things, to really look at it with critical thought. One of the things that we ask is, okay, could it have happened naturally? And look at it as a skeptic. Try and figure out how it might have happened naturally. And if you there's certain things, like some things will be woven in and out, and something else placed on top of it, that it's turned around and woven again, or something else is brought in and is completely suspended. And it just doesn't seem to be something that could be natural. Even a tornado can do crazy things, but that's not what it does. And it doesn't do it to just one little group in the middle of nothing. You're going to see other damage that's widespread. So when we come across something like this, we find it intriguing, because I don't know about you, but when I'm out camping or hiking, I never suddenly have the urge to tell everyone to stop and start collecting crap so that we can make a structure that has absolutely no purpose. That's not what I do when I'm hiking. And when I was a kid, if I was going to build something, it had a purpose. Even in Boy Scouts, bushcrafting and all of that, there's a purpose to every piece that you put down. One of the most important is being balanced and making sure it's sturdy so that you aren't crushed and killed while you're sleeping. And we find a lot of things that are not only involving large logs that are perched precariously, but serve no human purpose. And a lot of these logs are much larger than the average person would be able to lift, let alone suspend onto something else. So for those of your audience that may not be very knowledgeable about some of the stranger aspects of Bigfoot research, Christopher Noel, who is a very good friend of mine, put together a field guide to structures. And it came about because he was a founding member of the Inner Circle. He was with us at the beginning. As soon as Rio decided to create the group, Chris was there. And it started out as I said, sort of a jumping off point, a place that we could all brainstorm and come up with ideas to move forward proactively and to get other people involved. And we were, before we even created Project Go and See, sharing a lot of stuff in the Inner Circle, our members of structures, and sharing information, comparing structures, which surprisingly to those that may not know so much about the subject, we find the same exact structures and ground sign breaks, manipulations that appear to be unnatural, manipulated by something with purpose, not just across the US in various places, but across the globe. We're finding structures that are identical in odd ways. For instance, we had a member, Jason Parsons, Bigfoot Tony, who a lot of your listeners probably know. He was a founding member of the IC and one of the very first people to post in Project Go and See. He was very, very prominent in getting the group going. And he had shared a structure with me, a picture of a structure that he found in Wales. And what was odd about it turned out to be even more odd in hindsight. It had very specific tiny little sticks placed to the right of the opening, a couple flanking the opening, and then another couple few, I don't remember exactly how many, stuck into the ground, like impaled into the ground to the left of the opening. And it was very specific and odd. What purpose does any of that serve? What does it mean? Who knows? And move forward a couple few months, we brought a new member in England. It was about 1,400 miles from Jason Parsons. And he, right after he came in the group, had passed me a picture of a structure he had just found. And my first gut reaction to it was, oh, great, who did I let into the group? Because he just stole Jason's pictures and doesn't know that he's a member or that I would be familiar with his content and his research. And he's trying to pass it off as his own. And so I contacted Jason and I shared the picture with him. I said, this new guy I just brought in a couple of days ago just showed me this picture of yours. He goes, Barb, that's not my picture. That's not my structure. And he showed me his and he goes, look, they were the same size, the same shape. They had the same sticks to the right as the sticks to the left. They had the two. It was crazy. It was uncanny how alike these two structures were. And they were over 1,000 miles apart from each other. And people who've been in this subject for a long time realize or are somewhat familiar with how much structures look alike. Everything from little ground glyphs to massive asterisks and teepees and structures that we don't believe are man-made for various reasons. And in sharing these photographs, Christopher Noel came up with the idea of compiling a field guide of these structures based on our members' photographs. And so he had a really cool idea by he decided to hire a person to draw the structures, thereby removing all of the background noise of the structures so that you could just see the structures. It's called A Field Guide to Sasquatch Structures, the 50 Most Common Types in North American Forests by Christopher Noel. It's right here. This is what it looks like. It's available on Amazon, but it's super cool and really simple and straightforward. He will offer a directional break, and then a little blurb about what we know about them, what we think they might mean based on what they lead us to. These breaks, specifically these breaks, interestingly, the direction that the top of the tree is pointing in is the direction we suggest people move into and scan 180 degrees to the point where you cannot see from that point, from where that tree is. Move out until you get to the point where you wouldn't be able to see beyond that point from the tree, and do a 180, search. Start walking, do this arc, looking for structures. And we don't know why, but there's a very good chance you're going to find a structure if you follow one of those directional breaks, to just beyond what is visible from that point. We have success in finding structures this way over and over and over again. It's weird. It's just one of those weird things. We don't know what the break means. We don't know what any of it means, but we see these things over and over again. Little manipulations of sticks and twigs, of twigs on the ground, wishbone pins in trees, a tree that is not where it grew. There's no root ball. There's nothing in the ground showing that it grew there. Stripped of all of its branches, all of its bark, pinned up into another tree, having not damaged that tree at all. And in the rare occasion, excitingly, it's upside down. And again, no other damage in the area. Often it's a tree, unlike the trees in the immediate area, a different species of tree that clearly was brought in from someplace else and placed there. And then, you've got little wigwams and teepees and all kinds of stuff. But anyway, this is a really cool book if you're just getting into squatching and researching and, looking for sign. This is a great book to have because we've had lots of hunters and outdoorsmen and women come to us saying, I've been in the woods my whole life. I've never, ever seen any of this stuff. So I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know how you can say that this stuff is all over the place. And we give them some tips and say, you're not looking. You're not looking. Yeah. You didn't know to look for it. You didn't know how to find it. Do these things, look in these places, and come back and tell us you didn't find anything. To this day, I've never had anybody who I challenged in that way come back with nothing. They've all found something. And it's super exciting when not only do they come back and say, I found a structure, I've been in this area my whole life and I've never seen it before, I never noticed it before, but I found footprints, or I heard something that I can't attribute to any animal that I'm familiar with in the forest when I started poking around in this area. This is the kind of stuff that our members are experiencing, and it's really exciting when a skeptic or a cynic takes our challenge and finds something. And it's, like I said, more than not, they do find something.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you brought up Christopher, because last March I was able to spend a week in the Everglades with Christopher researching, and we were filming the 168 project that's going to be put out from Bigfoot Odyssey.
Yep.
And so I just want to throw a plug in to Carrie Arnold that it's going to be released Saturday.
Yep.
And so, but it was really great being able to have conversations with Christopher during that week.
I'm glad you brought up 168 because I actually just talked to Chris Reinhardt before, maybe a couple hours ago. We were on the phone for a little bit, and he's all super excited about it.
Yeah, it's going to be a great film. Carrie has shown me some previews of it, and you look at Carrie's body of work, and he just does an awesome job putting
Definitely.
these films together. Now,
Agreed.
I believe we have one more picture from Patricia. Let me see if I can get it up here, and we'll let you tell us about these structures.
So this is another example of something that isn't shelter, clearly. And if you look at what's around it, it makes it a little more difficult to think that it could be natural because it isn't dense forest. Um, it would be an oddity, and I don't know how it would even be possible for those to be branches that fell there when clearly there's not really even any trees nearby, um, and nothing else similar to it anywhere in the immediate area. It, in my opinion, is clearly manipulated with purpose. Something decided to do this and did it, picked this stuff up and made this. Um, it isn't shelter, it isn't a structure. I believe these are nowhere near a camp of any kind. There was no sign of humans, no campsites, no fire pits, no trash. These are the kind of things that you look at, and some of the critical thought that we ask our members to um, keep in the forefront of their investigating anything like this. Um, again, we don't know what any of it means. Something made this, not nature. This wasn't Mother Nature. And again, when you take into consideration that Patricia is finding footprints all over these areas, she was in this area for a purpose. I don't know that she actually found prints in this area, but um, I know that she finds prints more than she finds anything else from what I'm under the impression of. This is just another structure, and the one on the right is interesting because it's kind of like a halfway point between what we call an asterisk and a teepee. It's not really balanced around the base like a teepee would be. It's not filled in. There is a central tree that looks to be branched where this stuff has been wedged into. And another thing that is interesting about this one is if it was weather, let's say a storm came through, wind tends to blow from one direction, and it causes trees to, for the most part, fall in the same direction. Not only are there not any trees around this structure of that size or of any size to have fallen and get wedged into that standing tree in the center, but they're they've fallen in different directions. So then you have to ask yourself, okay, well, what are the odds of one storm in 2018 falling a tree, that fell to the left, just happened to, land perfectly between, the V of that tree. And then at some different time, another tree just happened to fall and again had perfect aim to fall into the wedge of this tree. And then, how many are there? I don't know. I can't. 5. Um, so you would have to believe that this all happened at the same time, or that it happened at various times when weather caused a tree to fall. What are the odds of 5 instances of trees finding their way between that narrow wedge in that tree? It's not realistic. It's just not realistic to think that that's natural. So, okay, next is, what are the odds of it being human? They're great. Those odds are really, really good. But when you consider that you're hearing whoops as you're sitting there, you're hearing tree knocks, there's footprints 10 feet from it. that are 17 inches in length by 6.5 inches wide. It's probably more likely not to be human.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Let's see. I'm going to find this next file, and this is from Carrie Val. Am I
Veal?
Veal? And tell us where Carrie is from.
So Carrie is in Oregon, and these are she gets great stuff too. Next to Patricia, she and Patricia together have amazing print content that they find frequently. Uh, these prints are all from different lake areas. Again, different lakes around Lane County, Oregon. I know she does some traveling, and so don't mark my words that they're all in Oregon, but I believe they are. And I want to give a shout out to her Bigfoot, or to her YouTube channel. Her channel is called Lane, Lane, Lane County Bigfooters on YouTube. And she's got a lot of really amazing video there, um, explaining and showing a lot more than just the photos that I'm sharing. She's got incredible results from her investigating the areas in and around Oregon near where she lives in Lane County.
Okay, and let's see. Let's pull up another picture. These are awesome pictures.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love this one because it's tiny. It's so little. And you can see in the right, there's actually a left and a right footprint item. I'm not sure whether she casted both of them, or if the right was just much more clear and castable. But I love this one because it's so small. And here's the thing about the small prints that we find so often. Sometimes there are larger ones with them, but a lot of times they're by themselves. And I don't know about you, but when I take a child into the woods with me, I don't let them wander away far enough that when someone else comes and sees their footprints and actually looks to try and find mine, they can't. Um, that was a juvenile, we believe, and it's by itself. And that is just an amazing print. She has quite a few very small prints, and again, just amazing quality, not just in the prints, but in her ability to photograph in a way that we can actually see the prints clearly. This is another trackway. Again, you can see the compliant gate, I believe. I'm looking at my phone. I'm trying to remember what's in each of these pictures. Am I correct? Is that a compliant gate in the picture over her shoulder? The trackway?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And again, as you can see, I love when our members or when researchers will place something next to a print so that we have an idea of how big it is. If they don't have measuring tape or stick with them, we suggest that they pull something out of their pocket, a dollar bill or a lighter, whatever you might have on you that can give perspective of the size. This again is a very small print, and by itself. I don't know how many kids are walking around barefoot by themselves in remote lake regions of Oregon, but apparently this one was.
Wow. That's amazing. And that substructure would be just great for casting prints
Yep.
in that area.
Yep.
Let's see. And we'll pull up the next one.
So here's another trackway that she found, which I love because this was pretty fresh. Grass doesn't stay compacted like that for very long. We all know how much our lawn grows overnight. Grass just doesn't stay like that. Within hours, those prints wouldn't even be discernible. So it's awesome that she found something so clear and fresh. And I don't know if she measured these. I don't think we have a measurement on them. But again, it's a compliant gait. The stride is pretty far apart, much longer than the average human stride would be. And the way that I don't know if it's clear in these pictures. Again, I'm looking at my phone, so it's hard to see. But I showed the creek there, the embankment, because it took very few steps crossing that embankment, which again lends to kind of feeling that it was not human. That's not how people move.
Yeah, those are they're fantastic.
Yeah.
What advice would you give researchers when they go out and look for evidence? Now, I really appreciate what you said about, if, let's say, you find a structure out there and you look at the direction that it's leaning, and that's the direction that you move into. And I know one thing that Kane Michael taught us, that these signs, they appear to be in straight lines.
Right.
So so it kind of shows that the direction that they are moving in. And so you kind of move in that direction like a tracker,
Right.
and look for the next sign. And if you can find the second sign,
Absolutely.
then you have a clear direction of
Right.
where that animal's moving.
Yeah. So I mentioned the 180 scope. That kind of goes, and I'm so glad you said this, because that is true, and that is something that we have come to know, and a piece of information that is being shared. You find one of those breaks or any sign. Say you find a structure or a footprint. There's more. You're gonna find more if you keep going. We suggest, again, like I said, do a 180 scan from facing the area that you found it in, or if it's a break, a directional break, start with that as a clue to which way to walk. You always walk, again, the way that the direction the treetop is facing, or what would have been the top of the tree. That's the direction you want to start moving in. And again, you want to sort of consider, when you're standing at that tree or structure, whatever it is you found, footprint, you want to consider, look ahead in that 180 scope, and look to where the foliage is just becoming dense enough that you can't see what's beyond it. And it depends on where you are. Different forests and different woods have different density of foliage. So you want to move in an arc from that spot of the sign that you found to the point further on where you cannot really see anything except dense forest. Am I making myself clear? I don't know how else to say it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Like, for instance, if somebody was moving away from you, the point where you can no longer make them out is where is the distance where you want to do that arch. You want to do that 180 arc. Start looking, walk a 180 arc from whatever piece of sign that you found in the direction that it dictates. And if you do find another piece, Then you start again. Let's say you find a teepee. Go to the teepee. Do that 180 arc facing, let's say, from the directional tree break, you find something at what would be your 2 o'clock. Make a beeline from that tree break to the structure that you just found, and facing that direction, facing 2 o'clock, then you would start your 180 arc over again.
Right.
You're more likely to find something in that arc than behind you. Clearly that's the direction this thing was moving. And then just keep going, keep going. And, at some point you may not be finding anything anymore, or you may start getting things thrown at you or hearing tree knocks. But that's what we suggest. And again, wherever you are, if you are in a place that isn't flat, geographically, like Kansas, but if you are someplace mountainous, lots of hills, whatever, you want to go to the northwest facing slopes. And the reason we suggest that is because that in the continental US is where the forests are the most dense, because of where we are on the equator. And the denser forests tend to naturally offer more cover and concealment. And it's just where we tend to find more ground sign than in other places. It also takes longer to dry out because it is more shaded, it is more dense.
Right.
So footprints are easier to notice. They aren't quite as quickly degraded by rain, wind, etc. So sign tends to last longer in those areas and is easier to find because it is a denser area, and we believe they prefer areas like that. They need cover and concealment, and that's where we find most of our structures.
That's common sense approach. And that's the purpose of this podcast, is to have people come on that has experience and knowledge and to share these things, because these are just great nuggets that you are sharing with us. And we also have another member from Project Go and See, and I will pull up this slideshow.
That's going to be William Henry.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, William's found some amazing stuff as well. So William is in Tennessee. I think you guys are familiar with him, right?
Yes.
He has found tons of amazing stuff. And I love the structure on the left because it's not just foliage. It's got that big rock stuck on top of it. Again, I don't know about you, but hunting, camping, hiking, that's not something I suddenly get the urge to do. It's odd. And it's clearly, in my opinion, manipulated with, not by natural sources. It's something put that there. Again, the reason that I tend to believe that is look at what is around it. If something so traumatic happened, such as a tornado, there would be a lot bigger debris pile, much more stuff in the immediate area, displaced from, wherever it came from, much more damage to the trees in the area, and there just was nothing. And that's why he found it intriguing enough and worthy of taking a picture. The one on the right, I believe I gave you another picture of that same structure taken during the day. I believe they were two different visits. He wasn't there for that long, that he took a picture during the day, and during the night he came back and it had changed. But what I love about this one is not only is that X foliage, tree trunks that fell, they didn't grow there. They are not standing where they fell. In other words, where you would expect the trunk to be broken at the ground, creating that lean. It isn't broken at the ground. There is no root ball. It did not grow there. It's displaced. It was brought in from a different location and placed like that. Excuse me. There's also a tree trunk going across the top, which is being suspended by something else, as well as right through the center. That is not on the ground. That is suspended off of the ground. I want to say 3 or 4 feet. And it is wedged in between these two tree trunks that are creating that X. I don't know how that could happen naturally. I just don't. Where's the rest of the tree that's in the middle?
Right. Right. Let's see. And then we'll pull up the next picture. Great structures.
Right now, that's an awesome TP. That is a cool TP. It did have an opening on the other side, but it's one of those that was structured in a way that there isn't enough room for a person to be in there comfortably, which is one of the things that we ask people to look at. I mean, a lot of these will have weird things placed inside of them too, like they'll be solid. I mean, you really can't even get into them. So it's not a structure. Or if it is big enough for someone to be inside, it will have tons of stuff stacked inside of it, oftentimes big rocks. Again, what would the purpose of that be if it's a shelter? I'm not going to be sleeping on a pile of rocks anytime soon. I don't know who else would. And then the one on the right, again, is a really cool example of something being threaded. In this case, it's threaded through, and if you really look at this, how could that happen naturally? Something threaded this thing in there, and crossed these branches. It's just not natural. It just isn't. Nothing in that immediate area even has bark like that. So that bark was brought in from somewhere else. It's a different kind of tree. It's just another one of those things that if you're paying attention and you notice, it would make you say, and if a person did it, again, why?
Yeah. Yeah. Those are amazing. And I also believe that we've got some video of William that no, we got this one here next. This
Yes,
is
that's a good one
amazing.
too. And this is a good example of some of the tedious things that they do. It's almost OCD. I didn't want to completely overwhelm you with a bazillion pictures, but anybody can go to Project Go and See on Facebook, or simply search hashtag Project Go and See to just see a massive catalog of our members' content, structures, and signs that they've found. Anybody can go and see that stuff. But this is something that we see a lot. It'll be large tree trunks that have all of these tiny little twigs and small delicate branches lined up all up and down. Again, it isn't shelter. It isn't big enough for somebody to be inside that lower portion, and the larger portion isn't even complete. If it's just odd. It's just another one of those things that you have to ask yourself. I don't know about you, but I've never stopped in the woods and said, I have to do this right now. I'm going to build this thing. I just don't know who it is. I don't know who's doing it. A lot of people, here's a funny thing. A lot of people say, oh, well, Boy Scouts do that. Well, Boy Scouts also have to comply with certain rules, one of which they leave the forest the way they found it. If they're doing, some badge for bushcraft, they have to take it down before they go. That is just a rule in not just Boy Scouts, but Girl Scouts as well. You bring something into the woods or the forest, you take it with you. You manipulate something, you put it back. You don't leave unnatural signs of your activity. You just don't do it. A lot of people love to believe that it's Boy Scouts. It's not. And if it is, it's a lot of Boy Scouts doing things they're not supposed to be doing.
I think that's a great point, and I've never heard nobody say that before. And um, so that's awesome, and that's something that I actually knew, but
And as
I
soon
have
as you
just
remind
forgotten it.
people of that rule in Boy Scouting, they shut up real quick because, their Boy Scout plan just fell apart.
Yeah, and let's see, we also we've got some video from that Henry has shot. If you want to just talk a little bit about this video.
Yeah, can you play the audio? Because honestly, part of why I chose that video is because he is using a lot of critical thought, and what he says is, in my opinion, much more important than what he's showing. Um, he's doing everything right.
I can't. I
Okay.
recorded it. I
Okay.
recorded it without
Then I
audio.
would suggest anybody who's interested in knowing more, look up William Henry in Project Go and See. You can search his name within the group. This video is not too far down in what you'll find, and really any of his videos are fantastic, but this one specifically is really good because he is using a lot of critical thought, and the things that he is saying is exactly what we ask people to do, as far as why he thinks it's unusual, why he thinks it isn't natural or man-made. And he does something else in one point here, where we find that in a lot of videos, I don't know what it's called, you might, but when you're filming in the woods and you're panning, sometimes things in the distance do this weird thing where if you pan to the right and then back to the left and back to the right, a dark object, for instance, in the background can suddenly appear to be tree peaking. It appears to be swaying back and forth. And it's a weird thing that happens when you are videoing, specifically and very often with a cell phone. It's this weird anomaly that takes place um, with objects in the distance. It appears that they're peaking and moving back and forth from behind a tree, for instance. And he actually, at one point, sees something through the lens and starts panning it back and forth. And someone who doesn't have experience with this phenomenon wouldn't know why he's doing that, but he's doing it because he clearly saw something. At least I'm assuming this is why he does this. He saw something in the background and it appeared to move through the camera, so he was moving the camera back and forth with his eyes on that object to see if it was moving when he moved, and stopped when he stopped, and moving when he moved, and stopped when he stopped. If that's the case, it's one of these anomalies. Um, Bigfoot's not going to know what he's going to do when he's going to do it. So, or an animal. And I think that was him being sure that what he perceived as something moving in the background was really just this lens anomaly that happens.
Well, how many times have we heard a researcher say that they see something, and the second that they turn their head and take their eyes off from it and then go back to look, it's not there anymore.
Well, and
So,
that happens a lot too. And to me, that's super exciting.
yeah.
That's money right there. I mean, and it isn't to say it's Bigfoot, but what it is to say is that it isn't a tree stump, because they don't get up and move. They don't get up and walk away. Something was there. Um, depending on the kind of researcher you are and the kind of person you are you going to pursue it? I would. but
Yeah.
unfortunately, most people don't. And worse than that, most people will capture something that they find after the fact, are convinced it's Bigfoot, and then they never go back. They never ever go back
Yeah.
to look at that area again to see if what they thought was Bigfoot in their video is still there. And I'm telling you, unfortunately, a lot of times it is still there when people have the courage to go back. People don't want to be disappointed. People don't want, especially in their own research. It's frustrating how few people are willing to go back. And I've seen some footage, some things in people's videos after the fact that most of the time I'm not impressed by, but every once in a while somebody will have something where I wish they had gone back because it is good. It is something that looks to be what we're looking for. And if you don't go back to make sure that it's not that weird photo anomaly, video, anomaly, if you don't go back to make sure that it isn't a stump, Rio posted a picture in the inner circle once, and we were floored. We were all floored that he had captured a class A photo of a Bigfoot in the distance. We were 100% sure. I mean, it was one of the clearest Bigfoot I had seen from a distance, mind you. We were so excited. He went back and it was a tree stump. And we couldn't believe it was a tree stump. And it looked like a Bigfoot until he got within 15 feet of it.
That's so important
Yeah.
that you have the after pictures, that you
Yep.
go back at the, if you see something on a video or a picture, that you go back at the same time of the day and to see if it's some type of shadow
Right.
or whatever. And
It's so important. It is so, so important. The most unfortunate thing, as far as I'm concerned, in the Bigfoot community is the sheer volume of photographs and footage that nobody bothered to follow up on. It's useless. It's all useless.
yeah,
Unless it's something clearly moving, I mean,
right.
there's a lot of footage out there of these things running across a road or standing up from behind whatever it was they were hiding it, behind it and walking away. We've seen plenty of that. But not enough, and way too much of this after the fact. Look what I found. Look what I found in frame, timestamp 1514. I know it's a Bigfoot. No, you don't. No.
Yeah,
You didn't even see it when you were looking at it through the camera. So how's it, go back. Don't even mention it unless you go back. Go back. And
right,
if it isn't
right.
there anymore and it looks like Bigfoot, well, there's a good chance it's Bigfoot. It's even exciting for us to have people go back and it not be there. At least we know, oh my gosh, okay, it wasn't a stump. It wasn't a rock. It wasn't deadfall. It's something that is no longer there. It was animated. It was alive.
Yeah. I want to say that tomorrow morning I'm going to pin at the top of the comment section the Facebook page for Project Go and See.
Oh, I never sent that to you. Sorry.
So, but I've got it, and I have
Okay.
to wait to after the podcast to post it, to pin it. But I would like for you to talk to us a little bit more in detail about Project Go and See.
Okay. So, it's really pretty simple and straightforward. Again, anybody is free to join the group. We do ask if you choose to participate. If you are an investigator, if you are a researcher, share what you found, please. But remember that we do not like red circles in our photos. We do not like photos with or without red circles that can't be backed up with follow-up investigation. We aren't interested in something that appears to be the shape of a Sasquatch or a humanoid figure. If you, and look, we're not asking you to be in hot pursuit of these things. We understand that not everybody has the courage or gumption or interest in tracking these things when they think they're looking at one and it starts retreating in the woods. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. It would be awesome if you do, but we get it if you don't want to. But at least go back another day, make a very strong mental note of where you are, and go back. Again, if you are finding stuff in your videos after the fact, go back, but post your own content, post what you find, hold your research to a very high standard, follow up, and join us. If you are outside of the United States, please jump on board. We have a lot of people observing from foreign countries that we really, really, really want to become involved. Share it with somebody who's maybe giving you a hard time about your interest in the subject. Share it with somebody who you think might have interest in the subject or find it interesting. Take them out with you. Show them the structures you found. Show them where you cast that footprint. Show them where you heard that vocalization or where you had your sighting. Share the information, get the information out there, encourage other people to go out and find the truth, and then share with us. Come to Project Go and See and share it. It's simple. It's as simple as that. Join, get out into the woods, record what you're finding, and share it with us in the group.
That's fantastic. And we've got time for a couple of questions from the chat. So if you have a question, then for Barbara, just put it in all caps and we'll pop it up here and ask her. At the beginning of the podcast, you talked about problems that this community faces and how you have to have private PMs and private pages to be able to communicate without people being ugly. And it's a shame this community is so ugly at times. Would you like to touch a little bit on that?
Yeah, and it's not at times. If you're going to be public with your stuff, you need to expect that you're going to get some blowback. It's going to happen. It's unavoidable, which is the most awful aspect. It's the most awful aspect of participating in this field of research. You will have a hard time with a lot of the people who come across your research if you're posting publicly. And I'm glad that you mentioned this, because when we launched Project Go and See, a lot of our members wanted to participate, but because of what Rio had gone through, and it was very fresh and it still stung a lot. And to this day, it can be terrible. And so we highly, highly, highly recommend anybody who decides to research, create an alter ego and start a page as opposed to a personal Facebook page. And the reason I say that is because if you have a personal page under a fake name, Facebook will, if they find out about it, if they question whether that is your name, they will require you to show ID proving that is your name, or you have to go create a page. So same goes for if you are capturing video of your areas in your research. We suggest that you create an alter ego for your YouTube channel. And that isn't to say that you can never, out yourself as far as your real identity goes. That's up to you. But believe me when I say that the better your research, the worse the community is going to be to you. And it's sad, but it's true. And if I've said anything that you should take seriously and to heart tonight, it is that. Be ready for it. It takes, and I don't care how ready you think you might be or how much you think you can take. It gets to the best of us and to all of us, and it's very, very difficult to navigate. So, especially if you have a YouTube channel, do not use your real name. Create an alter ego. Some of our members who were in the IC and decided to go and see and create channels and post in the inner or in Project Go and See. Bigfoot Tony is one of them. Snow White Bigfoot, Angie Sedgmer. The reason she even is known as Snow White Bigfoot is because she wasn't sure she wanted anyone to know who she was initially. She had a pretty good, she's had it pretty good. That isn't to say she hasn't had a hard time with anybody. It does happen to all of us, but she got used to it. Your skin does thicken if you stay with this, and you get to a point where you can navigate that and not care anymore. But it's hard. And even the most seasoned researchers will have moments in hindsight they wish they didn't react the way that they did to some of the negative feedback that they get. It will happen, and you won't be prepared for it. You know, I don't care how tough you think you are. It's very, very difficult to handle that well. So we suggest that you create this other Bigfoot YouTube and Facebook page. And, you know, like everyone knows who Angie Sedgmer is now because she learned to deal with it, but she was very worried at first. Not just in how people would react to her content, but in, I believe, friends and family. She was a little worried that people would think she was nuts, that she was doing what she was doing. And there comes a point where you get over it. But it's very hard. It's very hard to navigate. I actually named her Snow White Bigfoot.
Oh, really?
She had these foxes. I didn't even know foxes could come in these colors on her land, and she would take her dogs out while she was recording and throw these balls, and these foxes were frolicking, hopping, and running ahead of her and turning around and watching what she was doing and being really attentive and playful. And I'm like, my God, you're like Snow White, you know, with all the deer coming out of the woods and the birds and everybody talking to you. And when she decided to make her her diary public, she had been documenting her diary for a long time before she started sharing it. She had quite a lot of entries to record before she finally caught up. Months and months and months and months and months of videos to make of the log that she had already been keeping. And you know, I just said, you know, you're Snow White Bigfoot, of course, you know, that's who you are. And she loved it and grabbed it. And anyway, the point being, don't think that you can jump into this and start posting pictures, even in the Bigfoot community where the subject is taken 100% seriously for the most part, except, you know, the usual suspects.
Yeah.
You're not ready for it. You're just not. And that in and of itself, it's more awful and scarier than Bigfoot ever could be.
I agree. And what I have found over the years is usually envy and jealousy whenever somebody posts a good picture. And my skin's pretty thick. And I don't have, I can brush somebody off because a lot of times it's people that you know and they're just
Yeah.
keyboard warriors.
And it's such a
And they're
disappointment when somebody turns green like that, when you have such respect for them. And I've seen it too, and it's awful.
yeah. Well, I guess my problem is if somebody in my inner circle gets attacked, relentless. Now that's when I want to contact the person and ask them if they'll meet me for a cup of coffee somewhere, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and
as
that's the other
far,
hard part, and I'm guilty of that too. Oh my gosh, how I would come to Rio's defense, and that's another thing. You can't even engage them because it makes it so much worse. It's like these people become rabid when they know that they've upset you, and it's not just hard to see it, but it's hard to not respond to it. And if you respond to it, it makes it much, much worse. It's tough.
okay, we've got a question from Northern Illinois Sasquatch Research. And the question is, do you believe that governmental authorities are aware of Bigfoot presence?
I don't think that they're aware. I think that they know everything. And I think that that's why they aren't willing to admit or recognize the species.
Yeah.
What I think the reason for that is another conversation. But as far as I'm concerned, it's whittled down to two possibilities, and either possibility lends to there's just no way that they could ever admit that they exist, for a lot of reasons. And a lot of people feel like it's a travesty that they haven't been recognized, because we need to protect them. The best protection we could give them is to deny that they exist.
Yeah.
100%.
Now, our attorney, Can Squatch, which lives in Missouri, he's
Oh
just
yeah.
curious what part of the state that you live in now.
So I am temporarily in Sunrise Beach. I purchased some land in Camdenton, and I don't know where I'm going to plant my feet permanently for a couple of reasons. One, uh, I'm building and flipping, so there's such a housing shortage here right now, which is why I'm here. I'm going to develop and sell homes because there aren't enough to go around right now, in a particular demographic and a price bracket. So I'm creating some housing that I'm going to sell. And right now, currently, I own land in Camdenton. That's where I'm going to be building the first 3 houses. And after that, I'm not really sure. Cross that bridge when I get there. It's just nuts here. The real estate market here is absolutely insane. And I have some ideas about where I'll probably buy next. But as far as putting roots down here, I am with a very loved friend until I can find a place to rent for myself, because there's literally nothing available where I need it. And this has been going on for months and months. So I just needed to get here because I'm trying to get the land ready before, winter really sets in. I was hoping to get the first house done before winter, and that so did not happen. But to answer your question, short story long, I own land in Camdenton and I'm currently in Sunrise Beach, but both of those things will be changing.
Well, I know there's a lot of good places in Missouri to be able to go and conduct research. And I would be excited to be in Missouri. I see Ozark Mountain Sasquatch. He's in our chat now, and the work, that him and Randy Harrington
Yep.
has been doing there is just awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got into the 400.
Yep.
Yes.
Shane, I haven't let him know that I'm out here yet, but I was going to reach out to him.
He knows.
He knows.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
He's
Hi, Shane.
Ozark Mountain Research.
Yeah. So, but yeah, anybody else out there who's watching, if you're in Missouri, hit me up. My best friend is here. She's been amazing. Her in-laws have a huge ranch near the 400. And I've been out there and found some amazing stuff, including a seed tick nest that I stepped right in.
Oh,
That was fun.
Yeah.
But it's been mostly great. Found some structures, some pinned arches. That one pinned arch I found was the best I've ever seen. It was pinned in 3 different ways. Again, just there's no way it could have happened naturally. A suspended entire tree trunk wedged between a V, similar to the one we were discussing that William had. But this tree trunk is like 25 feet long, and it's up off the ground good 4 feet. Horizontal. It's wild. That was found on the ranch. I have not had nearly enough time to explore when I've been out here because it's been quick trips looking at real estate or visiting my friend's family and my friend. There hasn't been a lot of time for investigating, but I'm so excited, you guys. I was stuck in Southern California and then the last 2 years in the Nevada desert, the 2 least squatchy areas in the continental US, I think. So I cannot tell you how thrilled I am to be here in Missouri. I cannot tell you how thrilled I am.
Well, I tell you, Larry, have you got any questions?
She's answered everything. I didn't even have to ask. She just flowed right through. It was great.
Well, Barbara, we really appreciate so much you coming on and sharing your knowledge and your experiences. I'm looking forward to keeping up with Project Go and See, but we would like to give you this opportunity to leave us with any final words that you might have.
Yeah, I think the best way to end would be they're out there. They're out there, and there's much more to them than most people would contemplate. If you do decide to research, just keep in mind that it could get weird, and we're here if it does. Don't feel like there's anything that you can't come to us with. We've heard it all, and probably more than you could possibly even imagine. Go and see. Go and see. Be safe. Be smart. Have a good time. Enjoy the outdoors, especially now. The world is such a crazy place, and we've all been so cooped up for so long. Our forests and our woods have so much mystery and knowledge that is untapped. So go and see.
That's great. I just want to thank you again for coming on. It's been a great podcast. I would like to remind everybody, I saw in chat where Carrie Arnold is going to be releasing the 168 right after this podcast.
Oh, cool. Okay. I didn't know that.
So you'll be able to check that. And
Awesome.
That was for members tonight. I think Saturday it's to the public.
Okay. Yeah,
oh,
actually, I think you're right. I think it's Saturday
yeah.
for the
Yeah.
general public. Mhm.
And his sidekick, Bradley Hatcher, had surgery today, and the surgery went well.
Good.
And so we're
That's
glad
good.
for that for Bradley.
For sure.
And we just want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. It's been a great podcast. Go ahead, Larry.
And thanks to our veterans for making this all possible. Today is Veterans Day. So
Absolutely.
thank y'all.
Absolutely. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Definitely.
So
100%. Well, thank you so much, you guys, for having me and giving me the opportunity to share what we're doing moving forward. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So it's been so good to talk to you this past week. And I want to remind everybody that tomorrow morning we will pin the link to Project Go and See so that you can join and see the quality of work that they have been doing. And so we will see everybody again next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Night, night, footers.
Bye.
Your neighbor tells you about the unstable man in the cul.
Beast TV would like to welcome all of our new Facebook members. Be sure to check out our pictures and videos of possible evidence. And if you haven't checked out the Files tab, there is a wealth of information that you may find beneficial. If you would like to support Beast TV, check out our gear. We have coffee mugs, face masks, gaiters, shirts, and tank tops. The link is pinned at the top of the comment section. Everything is always marked down 20%. So come check out our junk.
This has been a Sawdust production.